The second domain where we'd like to share some learnings with you is health and wellness. And there's a big shift that we've seen in our recent analysis. And what that is that consumers are redefining wellness. They're moving away from aesthetic goals more towards accessible daily practices. And from this body of learning that we're uncovering, there are two insights that stood out to us as quite interesting that we'd like to share with you on. And the first is that dental care turned out to be an unexpected entry point into broader wellness behavior. The second being that faith is functioning as genuine mental health infrastructure for a significant portion of our community. Both of these really surprise us. And what really makes this research technique quite unique is that they come from the design and they come from letting the data speak to us rather than coming with a category hypothesis. But they both definitely have implications for any brand or organization working in the wellness space. We'll talk a little bit about dental care as the unexpected wellness catalyst. And we saw this across demographics. It really opens this momentum window into fitness and nutrition and mental health.
My health and wellness journey, since I got braces, I have always wanted to lose weight. So my health and wellness journey started when I got my braces back in October of 2024. When you get braces, you don't realize how it changes your life.
We've provided short clips. Our community often, the videos, they can go quite long. They average between 3 to 4 minutes, but the before and after for this member of our community, it so well past the aesthetic, changed her relationship, not only with her own health, but what she felt was possible for herself. The emotional impact of completing dental work, especially long postponed dental work, people described it as a relief, as a confidence boost, and also this feeling of a reset. People would describe themselves as feeling more like themselves again. And because of that, it was like a shift in self-perception that then activated broader wellness behavior. The person who took care of their oral health finally started working out or started eating better or scheduled the checkup that they had been avoiding. Next page. So, when we think about dental as this wellness gateway, how do we activate against that, right? When someone is in this dental gateway moment, what does that look like? So, what we saw is this long postponed work finally happened, that there were insurance or financial barriers that cleared, or this before and after moment that is experienced. So what's really the emotion behind that? What we're seeing is that in this scenario, there is a restoration of identity, feeling more like themselves. And this visible change in one part of life is opening this broader self care motivation in other parts of life. And what we've seen is that window is very real, but it also has a limited duration. How do you take advantage of that window? So the first is the thinking of wellness broadly, thinking about oral care within broader wellness offers while that momentum is fresh. Really focus on framing messaging around identity rather than aesthetics, feeling like yourself again. What we're seeing people talk about that is that as people internalize that, it's a lot more rewarding and more sustainable than looking better. So the practical implication here is that if you're a wellness brand, and that's a pretty broad category, there's a moment here that you may not be currently thinking about or capturing. And within the spectrum of oral health, there's a real opportunity to position yourselves as actually the start of a wellness arc, as opposed to what really a lot of the current positioning now is. It's like the end of a maintenance cycle. So let's get to the second insight we'd like to share with you within health. And This was pretty universal across demographics in a lot of the wellness conversation that we analyzed. And what we heard from our community is people really treating faith as a functional daily practice, something that they are using every day. Julie, if you could just play the video.
My mental health practices and stress relief. I do it daily. I pray daily. I meditate daily. Again, I try to instill Jesus' teachings within me to know that I should be humble. I should be patient. I should be kind. I should be forgiving. I should place others' needs before my own. And again, it's a delicate balance. You just can't do it all at once. You just can't tell somebody, oh, you got to do all these. And then boom, you're fixed. It's now a lifelong journey. It requires a lot of sacrifice. But again, praying and meditating, just talking to God daily, talking to Jesus daily.
Really powerful to hear in their own words. This is a Asian Gen X LGBTQ plus member of our community. And that insight may not show up in wellness segmentation work, right? Yet here they are sharing that faith is really the modality that they're heavily relying on. And some of the other universal patterns that we saw is that prayer and devotional practices really sit next to the calendar and the fitness tracker in how people organize their mental health, right? They're all sitting together, daily centering, crisis management, community belonging. This is everyday work that people are doing that's integrated into their routines. And faith and this practice, it also lives alongside secular tools rather than competing with them. We heard a lot of people talk about faith plus journaling plus therapy is a really powerful combination that they're working with. So if we go to the next slide, how do we apply predictive empathy to this whole trend that we're seeing as faith as part of wellness? And so when is that moment, right? So when people are turning to faith as a health tool, their morning routines and their grounding moment, at those moments when their anxiety spikes or they're stressed out about something, a period when self-care feels very inaccessible, whether that's from a financial standpoint or a logistical standpoint. So, what are the emotions behind that context? It really comes down to emotional clarity and belonging. The fact that it's free and it's always available. For many of the people in our community, this is really their first line of mental health practice. This is ahead of therapy. This is ahead of turning to the meditation app. And so when we get to the how and how to really design around that, is that faith, there's an opportunity to really acknowledge faith as a valid wellness modality, to build alongside it rather than in competition with it, and also to respect that its expression really varies significantly across different communities and different traditions. And so the implication we would share with the audience today is if you're designing a wellness program or a health program for a diverse population, and you're not accounting for faith, you may be missing a core daily practice for a large portion of the people that you serve. What is most striking, there's one thing that you walk away with today, as I know that we're sharing a lot of information with you, is that all these different domains within a person's life, they do not sit in a silo, right? If you step back from the specific insights for a moment, the person carrying the mental load of money that Julie just walked you through is the same person that's making the wellness decisions we just covered. It's one human being. It's not two different segments. And we see this clearly across our library. Financial anxiety shapes what people eat, what healthcare they postpone, and how they manage stress. The choice of food as anxiety medicine and the 24-hour rule on purchases, they come from the same place. They're both strategies for managing cognitive and emotional load. Faith and family carry across every domain too. The communal money systems we surface in our finances trends and the faith as wellness pattern that we surface in health are the same underlying behavior. It's really about humans relying on other humans and on meaning to manage hard things. So, strategy that treats these domains as separate problems, we think it misses the real motivator. The most useful insight is almost always across the whole life context rather than the category you happen to be working in. And that's really the case for ethnographic depth as a method, for predictive empathy as a framework, and for the library as a way of working with consumer understanding continuously over time, as opposed to commissioning a study every time a question comes up. So that's the case for treating consumers as full people.